My name is Jake Harrison and I used to believe in fairy tales. Not the kind with dragons and princesses, but the kind where two people meet, fall in love, and live happily ever after. For 18 years I thought I was living that fairy tale in Phoenix, Arizona, working as a mechanic and coming home every night to my wife Lisa and our golden retriever Buddy. I should have known that fairy tales are just stories we tell ourselves to sleep better at night. It started with a phone call on a Tuesday evening in March. I was washing the grease off my hands in our kitchen sink when Lisa's phone buzzed on the counter. She was upstairs taking a shower after her workout at the gym, a routine she'd started 6 months earlier as part of what she called her health journey. The name on the screen read Coach Preston. I figured it was her personal trainer calling about scheduling or something equally mundane. Lisa had been so excited about getting back in shape and I supported her completely. At 42 she deserved to feel good about herself. So I answered. "Hey there, gorgeous," a deep male voice purred through the speaker. "Ready for our private session tonight? I've been thinking about you all day, about how incredible you looked last week when you—" I hung up so fast I nearly dropped the phone. My heart hammered against my ribs as I stared at the silent device. There had to be an explanation. Maybe he'd called the wrong number. Maybe it was some kind of mistake. But deep down in that place where we keep our darkest fears, I already knew the truth. When Lisa came downstairs 20 minutes later, her hair still damp and smelling like her favorite vanilla body wash, she looked so beautiful and innocent that I almost convinced myself I'd imagined the whole thing. She wrapped her arms around me from behind as I stood at the stove, stirring pasta sauce. "How was your day, honey?" she asked, pressing her face against my shoulder blade. "Fine," I managed, my voice sounding strange even to my own ears. "Your trainer called." I felt her body tense slightly against mine. "Oh? What did he want?" "I don't know," I answered, but he hung up when he heard my voice. She laughed, but it sounded forced. "Probably calling the wrong number. You know how these fitness guys are with technology." That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling while Lisa slept peacefully beside me. Every soft breath she took felt like another lie, every unconscious touch of her hand against my arm felt like mockery. I found myself studying her face in the dim light filtering through our bedroom curtains, searching for signs of deception in features I'd memorized over nearly 2 decades. The next few weeks passed in a haze of suspicion and doubt. I started paying attention to details I'd never noticed before. How Lisa always showered immediately when she came home from the gym. How she'd started buying new underwear, expensive, lacy things that she never wore for me. How she'd become protective of her phone, taking it with her everywhere, even to the bathroom. But the biggest change was in her behavior toward me. She'd become almost aggressively affectionate, bringing me lunch at the shop, suggesting date nights, initiating intimacy more often than she had in years. If I hadn't received that phone call, I might have thought we were experiencing a second honeymoon. Instead, I recognized it for what it was: guilt. 3 weeks after the phone call, I made a decision that would change everything. I called in sick to work on a Tuesday, one of Lisa's gym days, and followed her. She left our house at 6:30 p.m., just like always, wearing her designer workout clothes and carrying her gym bag. But instead of turning left toward the fitness center, she turned right toward downtown Phoenix. My hands shook as I gripped the steering wheel of my pickup truck, staying far enough behind to avoid detection but close enough to keep her in sight. She parked at the Marriott Hotel in the city center. I watched from across the street as she walked through the lobby with the confidence of someone who'd done this many times before. 15 minutes later, a tall man in an expensive suit emerged from a black BMW and followed the same path. Even from a distance, I could see he was handsome in that polished, professional way that I'd never be, the kind of man who probably had a college degree and knew which fork to use at fancy restaurants. I sat in my truck for 2 hours, alternating between rage and heartbreak before Lisa finally emerged. She was laughing at something the man had said, her face glowing with happiness I hadn't seen directed at me in months. They kissed goodbye in the parking garage, a long, passionate kiss that made my stomach turn. That night, when Lisa came home and told me about her amazing workout, describing in detail the new routine her trainer had shown her, I nodded and smiled and felt something inside me die. But I wasn't ready to confront her yet. I needed proof. I needed to know exactly what I was dealing with before I made any moves. So I did something I'd never imagined myself doing. I hired a private investigator. Amanda Rose came highly recommended and charged more per day than I made in a week, but she was worth every penny. Within 48 hours she had a complete picture of my wife's affair. "They've been meeting twice a week for 6 months, Amanda told me as she spread photographs across my kitchen table. "Every Tuesday and Friday, 7 p.m. sharp, same hotel, same room. His name is Preston Cole and he's not actually a trainer, he's a successful real estate developer. Married, 3 kids, lives in Scottsdale. The photos were devastating. Lisa and Preston holding hands as they walked into the hotel. Lisa laughing at something he'd said over dinner at an expensive restaurant I'd never been able to afford. Lisa kissing him passionately against his BMW in the parking garage. Lisa looking happier than I'd seen her in years. "There's more," Amanda said gently. "He's not her first affair." My blood turned to ice. "What do you mean?" "Based on credit card receipts and witness statements, there were at least 2 others in the past 5 years. Shorter affairs, but still, your wife has been living a double life for a long time." I stared at the photos until they blurred together. 18 years of marriage and it had all been a lie. Not just the last 6 months with Preston but years of deception. I thought about all the times I'd worked late to save money for vacations she said she wanted, all the anniversary gifts I'd bought with overtime pay, all the nights I'd fallen asleep happy because I thought I was the luckiest man alive. "What do you want to do with this information?" Amanda asked. I looked up at her and for the first time in weeks, I felt something other than despair. I felt clarity. I want to destroy her. The plan came to me gradually over the following days. I couldn't just confront Lisa privately, she'd deny it, make excuses, maybe even convince me to try to work things out. And I couldn't simply file for divorce quietly, because then she'd get to control the narrative. She'd tell everyone that I was a bad husband, that our marriage had simply grown apart, that these things happen. No. I wanted everyone to know exactly who Lisa really was. Our 18th wedding anniversary was coming up in 6 weeks. We'd always celebrated it at the White Orchid, the restaurant where we'd had our first date in college. It was a tradition and Lisa loved traditions almost as much as she loved secrets. I told Lisa I wanted to do something special this year, a big party with all our friends and family. She was thrilled. "Really? A big celebration?" Her eyes lit up like a child's on Christmas morning. "Why not? 18 years is worth celebrating, don't you think?" She threw her arms around me. "Oh, Jake, that's such a wonderful idea. We could invite everyone, my parents, your brother's family, all our friends from college, the neighbors." "The more the better," I said, hugging her back and hating myself for how easy it was to lie when you'd learned from a master. Over the next 6 weeks, I became a man obsessed. I planned every detail of the party with the precision of a military operation. I sent out invitations to over 60 people. I hired a photographer and a videographer, telling Lisa I wanted to capture every moment of our special celebration. I reserved the private dining room at the White Orchid and ordered a custom cake with 18 years of love written in elegant script. Meanwhile, Amanda continued her surveillance. The affair with Preston was intensifying, they'd started meeting 3 times a week instead of 2, and Amanda had evidence that Preston was looking into divorcing his own wife. Lisa was living in 2 worlds and she was getting comfortable with both. The week before the party, Lisa bought a new dress, a stunning blue number that probably cost more than my monthly car payment. She got her hair done, her nails done, even booked a spa day. She was glowing with excitement, talking nonstop about how wonderful it would be to celebrate our love with all the people who mattered to us. "I can't wait," she said the night before the party, snuggling against me in bed. "Tomorrow is going to be perfect." "Yes," I agreed, staring up at the ceiling in the darkness. "Perfect." The day of the party arrived gray and overcast, which seemed fitting. I spent the morning at the shop, trying to keep my hands busy so my mind wouldn't race. My employees kept asking if I was okay. Apparently, I looked like I was about to throw up or commit murder. Maybe both. I picked up the cake on my way home, a beautiful 3-tiered creation that must have taken hours to make. The irony wasn't lost on me that I was about to use a cake celebrating 18 years of love, to destroy the woman I'd loved for exactly that long. Lisa was getting ready when I arrived home, and I could hear her humming in the bedroom upstairs. She sounded happy. Genuinely, purely happy. For a moment, I almost wavered in my resolve. Then I remembered the photographs. The party was set to begin at 6 p.m. By 5:30, Lisa was ready and she looked absolutely stunning. The blue dress hugged her curves perfectly, her hair was styled in elegant waves, and her makeup was flawless. She looked like the woman I'd fallen in love with in college before life and bills and routine had settled over us like dust. "How do I look?" she asked, doing a little spin in our bedroom. "Beautiful," I said and meant it. "Absolutely beautiful." She kissed me softly, careful not to smudge her lipstick. "I love you, Jake. Thank you for doing this. It means everything to me." "I love you too," I lied. We arrived at the White Orchid at 5:45 p.m. The private dining room looked perfect, white tablecloths, fresh flowers, soft lighting from the chandelier overhead. The photographer was already there, snapping pictures of the setup. The videographer was testing his equipment in the corner. "This is amazing," Lisa breathed, squeezing my hand. "Jake, you've outdone yourself." The guests started arriving promptly at 6 p.m. Lisa's parents came first, Harold and Margaret Bennett, a sweet couple in their 70s who'd always treated me like the son they'd never had. My brother Alex arrived with his wife and 2 kids, followed by a steady stream of friends, neighbors, and colleagues. By 6:30, the room was packed with over 50 people, all of whom believed they were there to celebrate a happy marriage. Lisa worked the room like a politician, hugging everyone, accepting compliments on her dress, laughing at jokes, and playing the role of the devoted wife to perfection. I watched her perform and marveled at how good she was at it. How many times had she done this exact thing, smiled and laughed and played the loving wife while carrying on affairs behind my back? How many of these same people had she lied to over the years? Dinner was served at 7 p.m. I'd chosen all of Lisa's favorite dishes, another detail that made me sick with my own thoughtfulness. During the meal, people kept coming up to us to share memories and offer toasts to our happiness. Lisa glowed under the attention, occasionally reaching over to squeeze my hand or lean against my shoulder. "You two are such an inspiration," said Karen Phillips, our next-door neighbor. "In a world where marriages fall apart every day, it's wonderful to see true love that lasts." "We're the lucky ones," Lisa replied, her voice warm with what sounded like genuine emotion. "Not everyone finds their soulmate." I excused myself to go to the bathroom, where I stood in front of the mirror and practiced what I was about to do. My hands were shaking and my face was pale, but my voice was steady. I had to be strong. I had to see this through. When I returned to the dining room, dessert was being served. The beautiful cake sat in the center of our table, its message mocking me from across the room. It was almost time. I stood up and tapped my water glass with a knife. The room gradually fell silent as all eyes turned to me. Lisa smiled up at me adoringly, completely unsuspecting. "Thank you all for being here tonight," I began, my voice carrying clearly through the room. "Lisa and I are so grateful that you could join us for this very special occasion." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd. I saw Lisa's parents beaming at me from their table near the front. 18 years ago, I married the woman I thought was the love of my life," I continued. "I thought I knew everything about her. I thought we had no secrets from each other." Lisa's smile faltered slightly. Something in my tone must have warned her that this wasn't going to be the romantic speech she was expecting. "But I've learned something interesting over the past few months," I said, reaching into my jacket pocket and pulling out a manila envelope. "I've learned that the woman sitting next to me has been living a double life." The room went dead silent. You could have heard a pin drop on the carpet. Lisa's face went white as she stared at the envelope in my hands. "Lisa has been having an affair," I announced to the room. "Not just one affair but multiple affairs over the past 5 years. The most recent one is with a man named Preston Cole, whom she meets at the Marriott Hotel every Tuesday and Friday evening while telling me she's at the gym." Gasps echoed through the room. Someone's wine glass hit the floor and shattered. Lisa's mother made a strangled sound and covered her mouth with her hands. "Jake, stop," Lisa whispered, but her voice was barely audible. "I have photographs," I continued, opening the envelope. "Would you like to see them? Pictures of my devoted wife kissing another man? Pictures of her entering a hotel room with him? Pictures of her living the life she really wanted while I worked overtime to pay for the life she pretended to want with me?" "Jake!" Lisa screamed, lunging for the envelope. "Stop this right now." But I stepped away from her, holding the photographs high above my head. "Why should I stop, darling? These are beautiful pictures. You look so happy in them. Much happier than you've looked with me in years." The room erupted in chaos. People were standing up, some moving toward the door, others trying to get closer to see what was happening. Lisa's father looked like he was having a heart attack. My brother was on his feet, trying to get to me through the crowd. "Everyone needs to know who you really are," I said, my voice rising above the commotion. "For 18 years, you've been lying to me, to your family, to all these people who think you're such a wonderful wife and person. Well, now they know the truth." Lisa was sobbing now, her perfect makeup running down her cheeks in black streams. "Please, Jake, we can talk about this privately. Don't do this to me." "Do this to you?" I laughed, but it was a harsh, bitter sound. "You did this to yourself every time you walked into that hotel room. Every time you looked me in the eye and lied about where you'd been. Every time you let me believe I was married to someone who loved me." The photographer was still taking pictures, capturing every moment of Lisa's public humiliation. The videographer was recording everything. Lisa noticed and tried to rush toward the camera, but I blocked her path. "This is what happens when you build your life on lies," I told the room, though I was looking directly at Lisa. "Eventually the truth comes out, and it comes out in the worst possible way." "I'm sorry," Lisa sobbed. "I'm so sorry, Jake. I made mistakes, but we can work through this. We can go to counseling." "We can." "We can't do anything," I interrupted. "There is no we anymore. I filed for divorce yesterday. You'll be served with papers tomorrow morning." More gasps from the crowd. Lisa's knees buckled, and she would have fallen if my brother hadn't caught her arm. "The house is in my name only," I continued relentlessly. "I'll be generous in the divorce. You can have your car and your personal belongings. But that's it. I'm not paying alimony to support the lifestyle you've been enjoying with your boyfriends." "Jake, please," she whispered. "You want to know the best part?" I asked, pulling out one final photograph from the envelope. "Preston is married too. Has 3 kids. And according to my private investigator, he's been having affairs with multiple women. You're not special, Lisa. You're just another conquest." The photograph showed Preston kissing another woman outside a different hotel. Lisa stared at it in horror, and I watched as the final pieces of her fantasy world crumbled around her. "So congratulations," I said, raising my water glass in a mock toast. "You've destroyed an 18-year marriage for a man who was cheating on you while he was cheating on his wife with you. I hope it was worth it." The room was emptying rapidly now. People were grabbing their coats and purses and heading for the exit, not wanting to be part of the spectacle any longer. Lisa's parents were trying to comfort her, but she was beyond consolation, sobbing uncontrollably into her hands. I picked up the beautiful cake and walked over to where Lisa sat crumpled in her chair. "One last thing," I said, and turned the cake upside down, letting it splatter all over her new blue dress. "Happy anniversary, darling." The aftermath was swift and brutal. Within hours, news of what had happened at the White Orchid had spread through our entire social circle. The video of my speech went viral on social media. Apparently, someone had been live streaming the party. Lisa became the poster child for unfaithful wives, with strangers on the internet calling her every name imaginable. Preston Cole's wife found out about the affair through the video and immediately filed for divorce, taking him for half of his considerable assets. He lost his job when the video reached his business partners, who decided his personal conduct reflected poorly on their company. The other women he'd been seeing also came forward, and soon he was facing multiple lawsuits. Lisa tried to salvage her reputation, but the damage was done. She lost her job at the marketing firm where she'd worked for 10 years. Apparently, her boss didn't appreciate having an employee who was famous for adultery. Her friends abandoned her one by one, unwilling to be associated with the scandal. The divorce proceeded exactly as I'd promised. Lisa got her car and her personal belongings, but that was all. She had to move in with her sister in Tucson because she couldn't afford to live on her own. I heard through mutual acquaintances that she'd gained weight, stopped taking care of herself, and had become something of a recluse. Meanwhile, I sold our house and bought a smaller place in Sedona, where I opened my own garage specializing in classic car restoration. Business was good. Apparently, my story had made me something of a folk hero among divorced men, and they came from all over Arizona to have their cars worked on by the guy who got perfect revenge on his cheating wife. I started dating again after about 6 months, though it took longer than that to trust anyone completely. The first few women I went out with seemed more interested in the story than in me, which was off-putting. But eventually, I met Janet, a divorce teacher who'd never heard of my viral moment and liked me for who I was, not for what I'd done to Lisa. A year later, I ran into Harold and Margaret Bennett, Lisa's parents, at a grocery store in Phoenix. I'd been visiting my brother and stopped to pick up some things for dinner. They looked older, more fragile, and I felt a pang of guilt for what I'd put them through. "Hello, Jake," Margaret said quietly. "Mrs. Bennett." "Mr. Bennett." I nodded respectfully. "How are you doing?" Harold asked. "I'm well, thank you." "And you?" They exchanged a look. "We're managing," Margaret said. "Lisa is still having a hard time." I felt obligated to ask, though I wasn't sure I wanted to know the answer. "How is she?" "Not good," Harold admitted. "She's been struggling with depression since that night. She can't find work, can't seem to move forward. She keeps saying she deserves everything that happened to her." A part of me felt satisfaction at hearing this. The vengeful part of me that had planned the party thought this was exactly what Lisa deserved for destroying our marriage. But another part, the part that had loved her for 18 years, felt something that might have been pity. "I'm sorry to hear that," I said, and surprised myself by meaning it. "We know she made terrible mistakes," Margaret said, tears in her eyes. But she's our daughter, and we're watching her destroy herself with guilt and shame. I stood there in the cereal aisle of a grocery store, looking at these two elderly people who'd loved me like a son and who were now watching their own daughter suffer the consequences of her choices. The satisfaction I'd felt for months began to taste bitter in my mouth. She brought this on herself, I said, but the words felt hollow. Yes, Harold agreed. But you chose how to respond to it. You could have handled it privately. They weren't wrong. I could have confronted Lisa quietly, could have filed for divorce without the public humiliation. But she'd humiliated me for years with her lies, and I'd wanted her to feel what that was like. I hope you find happiness, Jake, Margaret said before they walked away. I hope you find the kind of love you thought you had with Lisa. 6 months after that encounter, I heard that Lisa had attempted suicide. She'd been found by her sister and rushed to the hospital, where she spent a week in psychiatric care. The news hit me harder than I'd expected. Whatever she'd done to me, I'd never wanted her to hurt herself. I thought about visiting her, but Janet talked me out of it. You've both moved on, she said gently. Seeing you might make things worse for her. She was right, of course. Lisa and I were part of each other's past now, and that's where we needed to stay. But I couldn't shake the feeling that my revenge, perfect as it had seemed at the time, had gone too far. Lisa survived her suicide attempt and eventually got help. I heard she'd started seeing a therapist and had joined a support group for people dealing with depression and anxiety. She'd also started working part-time at a bookstore in Tucson, slowly trying to rebuild her life. As for Preston, his fall from grace was even more spectacular than Lisa's. His wife took him for millions in the divorce, his business collapsed, and he ended up moving back in with his parents in Ohio. Last I heard, he was working as a car salesman and had developed a drinking problem. 2 years after the party, Janet and I got married in a small ceremony in Sedona with just our immediate families present. It was everything my first wedding should have been, intimate, honest, and filled with people who genuinely loved and supported us. There were no secrets, no lies, no hidden agendas. Just two people who'd found each other after learning the hard way what real love wasn't. On our honeymoon, Janet asked me if I ever regretted what I'd done to Lisa. Sometimes, I admitted. Not the divorce, that was necessary. But the way I did it? I wonder if I could have been better than that. You were hurt, Janet said, understanding in her voice. Hurt people sometimes hurt people. That doesn't make it right. No, but it makes it human. 3 years later, I received an unexpected letter in the mail. The return address was Tucson, but there was no name. Inside was a single sheet of paper with Lisa's handwriting, though it looked different, shakier, less confident than I remembered. Jake, it read. I know I have no right to contact you after everything I put you through, but my therapist says that making amends is part of healing. I want you to know that I'm sorry. Not sorry that I got caught, not sorry that I faced consequences, but truly sorry for the pain I caused you. You deserved better than the lies I told and the life I stole from you. You were a good husband and I was a terrible wife. I hope you found the happiness you always deserved. I won't contact you again. Lisa. I showed the letter to Janet, who read it carefully before handing it back to me. What are you going to do? She asked. Nothing, I said, folding the letter and putting it in my desk drawer. It's over. And it was. Lisa had said what she needed to say and I'd heard it. We could both move forward now, carrying our scars but not our anger. Looking back now, 5 years later, I can see the whole story differently. Yes, Lisa betrayed me in the worst possible way. Yes, she lied to me for years and destroyed the life we'd built together. But the way I chose to respond, the public humiliation, the viral video, the complete destruction of her reputation, that was my choice, not hers. I got my revenge and it was perfect in its thoroughness. But perfect revenge comes at a cost, and sometimes the price is your own humanity. I learned that night at the White Orchid that there's a difference between justice and vengeance, and I chose vengeance. Would I do it differently if I had the chance? I honestly don't know. The hurt I felt was real, the betrayal was devastating, and the anger was justified. But the satisfaction I thought I'd feel from destroying Lisa's life turned out to be short-lived and hollow. What I do know is this: when someone betrays you, you have a choice. You can choose to be better than they were, or you can choose to be worse. I chose to be worse, and I have to live with that decision for the rest of my life. Lisa is still in Tucson, still working at the bookstore, still trying to rebuild her life one day at a time. She never remarried, never had children, never got back the life she threw away for a few stolen moments with men who didn't really care about her. In a way, she got exactly what she deserved. And I got exactly what I wanted. A new life, a woman who loves me honestly, and the satisfaction of knowing that everyone knows what Lisa really was. But sometimes, late at night when I can't sleep, I wonder if what I wanted was worth what it cost, not just Lisa but the man I used to be. The man who would have chosen mercy over revenge, forgiveness over destruction. I'll never know that man again. He died the night I answered Lisa's phone and heard another man call her gorgeous. In his place is someone harder, more careful, less trusting. Someone who knows exactly how much damage the truth can do when it's wielded as a weapon. Janet loves this new version of me, scars and all. But sometimes I miss the man I was before I learned that fairy tales are just lies we tell ourselves, and that sometimes the person you love most in the world is the one who will hurt you worst. That's the real cost of betrayal, not just what it takes from you but what it turns you into. Lisa destroyed our marriage, but I destroyed the man I used to be. In the end, we both lost everything that mattered. But at least now everyone knows the truth. Thank you for watching the video to the end. Maybe YouTube will no longer offer you my channel, so subscribe to it by clicking subscribe on the right under the video to receive new interesting stories. Also on the right of the video there is a playlist with other interesting stories that you can listen to, and you can also write in the comments what stories you would like to see on the channel.